Alrighty, guys, it has been a while, but I finally got another session in. And this one, another piece of evidence to file away in the old cabinet of it not mattering and or there being no correlation or very little correlation between how good a session is and how much my players enjoy it. This was another one where I only had like 15 minutes of prep time before the session, and I just like threw stuff on a page and let it run. Like I've certainly found that without that deadline, I can't get stuff done. I can't like prepare sessions beforehand and then have something ready for when we play. Like I cannot force myself to write unless I know like okay, there's going to be a session today or tomorrow and I have X amount of hours until we will be at the table and playing. Like now I finally actually have to sit down and write this. But this one, like my players said that it was their favorite session yet, and one difference with this one, this was far and away the longest session that I've run in this campaign, and possibly even ever run in my entire career. It was like 6 hours, maybe a little longer than 6 hours. It was like from like 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. This was a long one. And I definitely did not originally intend for it to be that long by any stretch of the imagination. So for our players, we had Humdu, Cletus, and Adrian continuing their quest to find and recover the Orus and Oriflim from the Necromancer Lurius Pain. So last session they found this little cavern, or they suspected there's a cavern underneath the house from Cletus's cape. That was something last session that I just came up with on the fly as for a reason as to like them not feeling like they went through that entire house mission without a single like purpose or for any reason. So they come back. They find the troll in its little water cave and they kill it. They explore a little further and they find a portal, a literal gateway to hell that they they take some of the troll's blood, activate its little ritual lock. They open up the portal and go through. So they take a quick trip through hell. They see some lemurs and other tortured souls. They travel around for a while and they find Marquide, who has been like flayed as he works as a bearded devil slave mining away. He begs the players to help them, but the players entirely ignore him. They don't help him. They don't fight the bearded devil or anything, which fair enough. I was kind of expecting that. I kind of wanted an opportunity for him to come back because he's probably my favorite NPC as a DM. So yeah, maybe I'll just forcibly have him come back as either some demon servant or possibly as a demon himself of some kind. I'm still thinking about that. Not exactly sure how I want to go about doing that, but I think I will do something along those lines. So they go through the hell. They find a second portal inside hell that leads to the entrance of Lurius's labyrinth. They kill the bone devil outside that has been acting like a guardian for this gateway. They kill that guy, go through the portal, and they find the first layer of the labyrinth of Lurius. Now this, I had intended for this to be a mega dungeon. I had intended to have them go through multiple layers of this dungeon, each level with like its own sort of theme. But at this point, all I had was like a rough idea as to like a layout of the rooms in level 1 and vaguely like what I thought was going to be in each of those rooms, but like not more than like half a page's worth of content for this dungeon. So I was ready to just end the session there. That was only like not even halfway through. There was like 2 hours in, but everyone was like, "No, let's continue." So, just went along with it. Worked off of my half a page of notes for this dungeon, and they decided to like check every single room without like fighting anything inside any of these rooms. Like they would just open a door, see a bunch of skeletons, and then close it. And I just figured, like, well, the skeletons have no reason to immediately attack because they don't know who this is. They don't know if this is a guest of their necromancer, but they're going to be defensive, but they're not going to immediately jump out and attack at them. So they go through and like check to see what's inside every single room. Because the rooms aren't directly connected. You didn't have to like go through any room to get to any other room. They were all connected through a hallway, like a giant winding hallway. So they just went through this whole hallway and checked on every single room. And then eventually they finally attacked something. They attacked like a giant skeleton, like bone scorpion. And the sound of that fight alerted every single thing in the entire first layer of the dungeon. So they ended up in a situation where every single enemy was on them at once. And they actually did pretty decent. They if I plugged that combat into Kobold Fight Club, it would probably say like extreme death, like 0% chance of survival or whatever. But they managed to funnel things into corridors and only have to fight things one at a time. And they did come very, very close to dying. Well, one character, in fact, did go down multiple times. He has suffered a couple of lingering injuries. It was a limp, and Humdu specifically, I should say, suffered a limp and lost one of his toes. And they got in a situation where he also got cursed by a mummy. He got the rotting fist punched by a mummy, so his max HP was slowly gonna drain down until he died forever and turned to dust. And so the players were like, all right, we got to get him out of here. And there were still some stone Ushapti, like stone golems that were coming through the dungeon. Now the dungeon was only 5 feet wide and these golems are 10 feet. So they had to squeeze and were moving slowly. And there was a very tense moment where the players were considering, because the two players, Humdu and Cletus, are both very low strength characters, so they would struggle to carry Humdu through the rest of the dungeon to get him back to the entrance. And I didn't want to let just a character, or at least I wanted to give an opportunity for them to save him. I also wanted to encourage them to try to save them, but I wasn't exactly sure what to do in the moment. So it kind of ended on this sort of lackluster note where, they were arguing for like 5 minutes, probably even longer than that, like maybe 15 minutes about whether or not to leave Humdu there for dead just to escape with their lives, or whether to, risk trying to save him. So once they decided to save him, they just picked him up, carried him, and I was like, all right, well, you guys can move your normal movement distance and they'll follow half as slow. And I kind of just ran it in the same way that you would like combat. And so they just walked out of there because they were moving faster than the Ushapti, and they were like, oh, that was it. Like, if I knew that was all going to be what I had to do, then we wouldn't have even argued. We would have just walked him out. And I was like, yeah, that's fair, that's true. Other than that one little note, that one hiccup at the end, though, it was a very fun session for everyone involved. Probably had our multiple tensest moments throughout the entire campaign. If I were to repeat that last part I felt like an idiot because I realized afterwards, like, oh, wait a second, I put so much time into writing my own chase rules. Why in God's name would I not just, why did I not think to just use those chase rules and then have them have to make a couple of checks? Now, it probably would have been very, very hard because they were moving faster than the people chasing them, but the stakes would have been as high as you possibly could make them, because if they failed it, then Humdu would have died. So I very much so regret not making that into a chase scene. If I ever end up in that situation again, this time I know for sure that I'll remember to do that. Um, so they did get out of there with Humdu. They brought him to the priest, Father Gimel, and he had to use all of his gold, and everyone else had to shell out a bit to pay for his curse removal spellcasting service. But they did do that. Everyone got out and they survived. Now for next time, I guess something else that was awkward was once they all got to the dungeon, they didn't want to leave because they were like, all right, well, we worked all like super hard getting through hell just to like get here. Like we're not just gonna go back to town now. So like introducing that rotting fist curse from the mummy was like the only way I could really think of to like sort of force them to go back to town, which is kind of awkward with this West Marches style campaign where both everything is being played in real time. So if they stayed here, they would just be sitting in this dungeon for like a week on end, and or like trying to come up with a reason why they wouldn't just like immediately continue the dungeon when they come back, and or like if they stay in the dungeon and there's another session, will other people like be able to just find their way here, like other characters that were not involved in this campaign? So like I did make these things clear to my players. I just landed on like, okay guys, if you stick in this dungeon, like if you guys just all just sit here, like the next time you play an adventure, it'll like either just have to be these three characters again, or like you guys are gonna have to make new characters to play with whoever is here and is present that's not in this dungeon, and or you're gonna have to come up with some sort of way that your character could like inform them that you know of the entrance of this dungeon. But all in all, this session gave me a lot to think about, and I've definitely learned a lot more from this session than many other sessions I've run in the past. This has uplifted my spirits. I was quite concerned with having to wait so long in between sessions, and also the last one was a bit piddly. It was only a single combat. It was like we only had like an hour and a half or something like that for the entire session, which is certainly not ideal. I definitely prefer to have much more time than that. But yeah, this one worked out pretty well. I am very happy with this one. Has lifted my spirits again. I am very much so excited for the next session after this. I do think this was one of those critical sessions where if this one had gone poorly, if we had a bad session after a super long hiatus since the previous session, then I don't necessarily want to say that would have been the death knell for the campaign, but it possibly could have certainly not have been good. So, but yep, that's all I have for this one. I will, let you guys know how the next session goes.